The sun had barely pierced the horizon when Captain Ibrahim Traoré's phone rang. His hand hovered for a moment above the sleek black device, a faint unease curling in his chest. It was 8 a.m., a time he usually spent reviewing plans and reports from across the country, but the urgency in the voice on the other end made him freeze. "Captain, it's the school. They attacked it." The words hit like a thunderclap. Traoré felt a cold shiver race down his spine. The school, his alma mater, the place that had shaped the minds of Burkina Faso's next generation, was under siege. The report was fragmented, chaotic. Gunfire, screams, chaos. 5 students had already died, and hundreds were trapped inside. He grabbed his coat, his mind racing. Every step toward his car felt like a countdown to disaster. He didn't just see himself as a leader of soldiers. He was a protector of his people, of their hopes, their innocence. And now, that innocence had been violently stolen. As he drove, his mind replayed the scenes he feared. The terrified faces of children, teachers desperately trying to shield their students, the metallic taste of smoke and blood. He clenched the steering wheel, his knuckles white. Every second mattered. When Traoré arrived, the schoolyard was a scene from a nightmare. Smoke curled from shattered windows. A sense of panic hung in the air like thick fog. Mothers were screaming, their voices cracking under the weight of unspeakable grief. Fathers stood frozen, hands trembling, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Traoré's eyes scanned the area, catching sight of the first responders coordinating a rescue. He could see the small, lifeless forms of students being carried out. Each one felt like a dagger in his heart. 5 young lives snuffed out before they even had a chance to dream. "Captain Traoré," a teacher called, voice shaking. They were in the library. They didn't stand a chance. He didn't respond immediately. His mind was already calculating, strategizing, how to secure the building, how to prevent further loss, how to bring the perpetrators to justice. But beneath the tactical layer, a raw human emotion surged. Rage, sorrow, and an almost unbearable sense of responsibility. Traoré stepped inside, guided by the police. The hallways were a labyrinth of overturned desks, broken glass, and scattered textbooks. The acrid smell of smoke burned his lungs. Somewhere, a child whimpered. Somewhere else, silence screamed louder than any gunshot. He approached a classroom, where the last survivors were huddled, eyes wide with terror. Traoré knelt down, trying to speak calmly, to anchor them in his presence. "It's over. You're safe now. I'm here," he said, voice steady despite the storm inside him. Small boy clutched his arm. "Sir, my friends, they're gone." Traoré swallowed the lump in his throat. Every leader knows responsibility, but this was different. These were lives he had vowed to protect, not through orders alone, but through action, through courage. The attackers had fled, but Traoré's mind refused to rest. He coordinated the tracking teams, deploying drones and local informants, piecing together the attack with the precision of a general and the intuition of a father. Each clue brought him closer to the perpetrators, but also deeper into the shadow of fear that had already gripped the nation. He imagined the parents at home praying, waiting, and he promised himself that he would not fail them. Not again. Later, as the sun set, Traoré stood alone in the schoolyard. The bodies had been taken away, the survivors escorted home, but the silence was deafening. The weight of the day pressed down on him like a physical force. He remembered his own childhood, the laughter of friends echoing through hallways, the smell of chalk and books. Those memories clashed violently with the devastation he had just witnessed. Tears threatened, but he swallowed them, knowing the country watched him for strength. Yet in the quiet, a promise formed. Traoré would not just avenge this day, he would prevent another. Every measure, every strategy, every policy would now carry the memory of those 5 students. They would not be forgotten. The night had settled over Ouagadougou like a heavy blanket, but Traoré felt no rest. The schoolyard, once filled with the laughter of children, now lay quiet, marked by destruction and memory. Each shattered window, each overturned desk, whispered the names of those lost. He could still hear their cries in his mind, a chorus that demanded justice. "Captain, we've got a lead," said Major Traoré, breaking his trance. The intelligence team had traced one of the getaway vehicles to a deserted district near the river. Traoré's jaw tightened. There was no time to waste. As they drove, Traoré's thoughts raced. This was no longer just about punishment. It was about preventing a pattern of terror from taking root. He remembered his own years as a young soldier, learning that fear is often the enemy's most potent weapon. Tonight, that weapon had been unleashed on children. The city at night was a maze of shadows. Street lamps flickered, and the wind carried the faint scent of smoke from the school attack. Traoré's convoy moved silently, engines low, lights dimmed. Every corner could hide danger. Every alleyway could conceal those responsible. "Do you think they're expecting us?" Traoré asked quietly. "They won't expect Traoré to be this close." Traoré replied, his voice low but firm, "And that will be their mistake." The tension in the vehicle was palpable. Soldiers and officers held their positions like statues, eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. Traoré, however, focused not on what was in the shadows, but on the lives of those 5 students. Each image was etched into his mind, a personal mission driving him forward. As they approached the river district, movement flickered in the darkness. Traoré raised his hand, signaling the convoy to halt. He stepped out, silent as a shadow, and moved toward the figure crouched near the riverbank. The first attacker froze when he saw Traoré emerge from the darkness. There was no hesitation, no fear, only the cold realization that they had underestimated him. "Drop your weapon," Traoré commanded. His voice was calm, but beneath it roared the weight of grief and rage. The attacker lunged, a desperate attempt at escape. Traoré reacted instantly, a combination of skill, instinct, and unyielding resolve. The fight was brutal, every move precise. When it ended, the attacker was subdued, but Traoré barely noticed the relief. His mind was already racing to the next threat. In the aftermath of the confrontation, Traoré examined the attacker. He found a note clutched in his hand, smeared with blood and dirt. The handwriting was jagged, almost unreadable, but a few words stood out. "This is only the beginning." Traoré's stomach tightened. This attack was not random. It was planned, coordinated, and possibly only the first wave. The lives of children hung in the balance, and he knew he had to act faster than ever. He radioed Traoré, "Mobilize all units. We're dealing with a network, not a single attack. And prepare the rescue teams. More schools could be at risk." Returning briefly to the school, Traoré walked among the halls once more. The smell of smoke lingered, mixing with the faint scent of chalk and paper. He knelt at the empty desks, tracing the names of the fallen students scratched into the wood. By anxious hands. "I failed you," he whispered, though he knew it wasn't true. He had done everything he could in the moment. But could that ever be enough? His hand trembled, not with fear, but with the raw intensity of sorrow. Yet even in grief, Traoré found purpose. He couldn't undo the past, but he could shape the future. Every strategic decision, every patrol, every diplomatic move would carry the memory of those 5 students. They would not be forgotten. News of the attack spread rapidly. Families huddled together, questioning their safety. Schools across the nation implemented emergency protocols. Traoré's resolve was mirrored in the eyes of every citizen, the realization that this was a fight for the very soul of Burkina Faso. Late into the night, Traoré convened with his closest advisors. Maps, reports, and intercepted communications filled the room. Every lead was scrutinized, every possibility considered. He felt the weight of history pressing on him. If he failed, this terror could escalate, leaving countless children in harm's way. "We cannot stop at one arrest," Traoré said, voice firm. "This network must be dismantled completely, and we will find every last one responsible." Hours passed. Each call, each report, each tip brought them closer to the truth and closer to danger. Traoré never left the command room. Surrounded by screens displaying live feeds, maps, and intelligence. Every sound of a gunshot or alarm caused his heart to skip a beat. And then, a breakthrough. A drone captured movement near the outskirts of the city. A small convoy, suspicious and heavily armed, moving with calculated precision. Traore's jaw tightened. The attack was larger than he imagined. "This ends tonight," he muttered. And for the first time, a spark of fury mingled with his grief. It was no longer just about 5 students. It was about every child, every family, every citizen who deserved safety. The night had grown colder, but the air in Traore's command center burned with tension. Screens glowed with movement captured by drones, maps marked with suspicious locations, and reports streaming in from field agents. Every second was a race against time, every missed detail a potential tragedy waiting to unfold. Traore rubbed his face, feeling exhaustion press on him like a weight. Yet there was no room for fatigue, only focus, determination, and the memory of the 5 students whose lives had been stolen that morning. "Captain, they're converging near the old industrial district," Traore said, pointing to the map. 3 vehicles, armed, moving fast. Traore's eyes narrowed. He could almost feel the malicious intent radiating from the map itself. Whoever had orchestrated the school attack was skilled, calculating, and merciless. But they hadn't counted on Traore. By midnight, Traore and a specialized task force moved silently through the labyrinth of abandoned factories and warehouses. Shadows clung to the walls, and the faint hum of distant machinery echoed eerily. Every corner could hide danger, every alleyway a trap. Traore's instincts, honed through years of military service, guided him. He signaled hand gestures, moving, his team with precision. Even in the darkness, he saw patterns. The slight shift of shadows, the faint glow of a cell phone, the disturbed dust on the ground. Then, a flash of movement. Traore froze, signaling the team to halt. His pulse quickened. The attackers were near, but they didn't know he was watching. The suspense hung heavy, a tangible thing pressing down on every soldier, every breath drawn with silent calculation. The attackers had split into 2 groups, one moving toward a warehouse and the other toward a side street. Traore chose the side street, moving with calculated stealth. As they closed in, gunfire erupted, sudden, violent, terrifying. Bullets whizzed past, striking metal and concrete. Traore dove behind a rusted shipping container, heart hammering. He returned fire with precision, every shot a statement. Justice would not be delayed, not for the students, not for the nation. The firefight was chaotic. Sparks flew, shadows danced across the walls, and the echo of gunfire reverberated through the industrial district like a drumbeat of war. Yet amidst the chaos, Traore's mind remained clear. He calculated angles, predicted movements, and pressed forward, undeterred. After the firefight, Traore paused in the cover of darkness. His chest heaved, adrenaline coursing through his veins, but for a brief moment, he allowed himself to remember. The schoolyard, the terrified faces, the mothers' cries, the small forms of students being carried out lifeless. Tears stung his eyes. The weight of responsibility, of grief, of rage, threatened to break him. But he straightened, wiping them away. Traore understood something essential. He could not afford to falter. His emotions were fuel, but they could not cloud his judgment. Every second mattered. Every life could depend on the decisions he made. In the next moments, the last attacker emerged from the shadows, gun in hand. Traore recognized him immediately. The planner, the one who had orchestrated the school attack. Time slowed. The world seemed to hold its breath. "Your reign of terror ends tonight," Traore said, voice low but unwavering. The attacker laughed, a chilling sound that seemed to echo from the darkest corners of the district. "You think you can stop this? This is bigger than you." Traore's eyes burned with intensity. He lunged forward, disarming the attacker with a combination of speed, precision, and raw determination. A struggle ensued, grunting, shouting, the clash of bodies and metal echoing through the empty district. But Traore's resolve held. Within moments, the attacker was subdued, bound, and unable to continue his campaign of terror. With the attackers captured and the threat neutralized, Traore allowed himself to exhale. The night was silent now, but the echoes of the morning's tragedy still haunted him. He returned to the school at dawn, walking the halls that had been scarred by violence. He knelt at each desk where the students had died, whispering their names into the quiet. I will never forget you. Your lives will shape the future of this nation, even if you can't live to see it. The emotional weight pressed down, heavy and unyielding, but Traore understood that his role was larger than grief. It was about leadership, about justice, about ensuring that no child would face this terror again. News of Traore's decisive action spread across Burkina Faso. The nation, grieving yet inspired, saw in him a figure of strength, courage, and relentless justice. Citizens wept for the fallen, but also found hope in the knowledge that someone would stand unwavering against those who sought to spread fear. For Traore, the emotional journey was far from over. The memories of those 5 students would remain, guiding every decision, every strategy, every step forward. The suspense of the past day had given way to resolve, but the story of leadership, sacrifice, and courage would continue to unfold.